your family, and our communities. The law was created to protect women, girls, and all vulnerable people against violence, from rape to domestic abuse, harmful practices, and even new crimes like cyber stalking. And over the next 45 minutes, we'll break down what the law says, what protections it gives, the penalties offenders face, and why it is such a turning point for justice in Nigeria and here in Benue State. And to guide us, we have in the studio Barrister Amma Timothy Esquire. So you're welcome to Agate Radio Studios today.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, listeners.
Well, Barrister Amma Timing will guide us later as we'll understand the law, clear up common myths, and answer your questions directly. This is going to be an interactive program, and your voice matters. So later, you'll be able to call us on 081 435 4335 9292, and that's 081 433 59292. I want you to copy down the numbers, or 091269999404. That's 09126999404. But before that, stay tuned for the conversation that could save lives, protect rights, and empower our communities. All right. Okay, Barrister Martimin, what exactly is the VAP law, and how useful is it to the common man out there, and why should we pay attention to it?
The Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act is a law enacted by the Nigerian National Assembly in 2015. And most of the states have domesticated this federal act because it is a law that is applicable to the FCT. So for Benue State, we have the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Law of Benue State 2019. And the primary aim of the law is to eliminate all forms of violence, be it in private or public life. And it seeks to prohibit all forms of violence against persons. And persons includes all Nigerians, all persons, irrespective of their gender. And then it provides maximum protection and effective remedies for victims, and thereof punishment for offenders of the law itself.
Just to enlighten us further, Barrister, what are some of the major crimes it addresses?
Now, some of the major crimes the law addresses is one of them is rape. And it's very instructive that rape has been defined as any sexual penetration without consent. And there are penalties that are provided under the law. And this is to mean that, in fact, if you have rape, if you have sexual intercourse with someone who is under the age of 12, it is rape. It's immaterial whether the person have given consent or not. So that requirement and the punishment thereof is that of a life imprisonment. So as opposed to the penal code law of Benue State that we have, where you have a punishment of 14-year, jail term, in the case of the VAT law, the punishment there is life imprisonment. So if you are guilty of rape under the VAT law, then it's life imprisonment. And then you look at domestic violence, and these include even physical, emotional, or psychological abuse that are very common even at homes or even in schools or offices.
Barrister, when we say domestic abuse, are we referring to abuse, somebody saying your head is big? When we use the word abuse, I will say, including, can we come down to the level of the common man?
Now, abuse can be physical, it can be emotional, it can be psychological.
When you say abuse, it sounds like insult.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why if you look at the law itself, it talks about even physical abuse. The one of applying, beating someone. And then even insult could be abuse or interpreted to mean abuse because it has to do with emotion.
Really?
Yes. So the law seeks to protect the dignity of the human person in its entirety. So what you say about the other person that has psychological or emotional effect on that person that traumatizes the individual involved, then there are punishment to that effect. And imprisonment can be one of them, or fines can be one of the punishment that will be meted out to the culprits or persons who are guilty of this. Then we have other harmful practices, which one of them that is very common, though not common in Benue, you have that of female genital mutilation, very, common in some
That is circumcising women.
women. Yes, that is a violation of the rights of women as far as the law is concerned. So when you do that, you are violating the rights of the women under the law. And then you talk about forced marriage. Instances where children or infants are forced by their parents to marry without, their consent. Such acts are acts that are treated as offenses under the law. Then other practices that harm individuals, particularly women. When you talk about women and the girl child, we have some African or Nigerian tradition that seeks to say that women will not inherit, properties of their parents or husbands, as the case may be. Such practices are repugnant to natural justice, equity, and good conscience, and they are treated as offenses under the law. And then you talk about cyber stalking, where people are being monitored online or someone is threatening you online. The law treats that as an offense, and punishment are meted out, and imprisonment will equally be one of the punishment meted out to the individual involved. And then emotional and verbal and psychological abuse is one of the offenses under the law. So behaviors that causes emotional distress or harm to an individual, yes, is treated or are treated as offenses under the law, and there are punishment. And you can easily earn yourself a jail term, or you'll be compelled to pay a fine when you cause that kind of abuse to an individual, as the case may be.
Well, this seems like a dragnet of an act, going about trying to nip a lot of ills in the society, especially as it affects women. Before we take your calls, I would like to ask Barrister this question before we start taking calls from you. And please, when you call, tell us your name, go straight to the point, because we have just about 30 or so minutes left for us to take calls before we wrap up. Barrister, what are the key protections that this law has for women and other vulnerable populations in the society, and how it seeks to address all forms of gender-based violence and other harmful practices that were previously not recognized or punished under Nigerian law?
Now, why it is very important for men to establish that the law seeks to protect people of all genders, but your question borders on women and the vulnerable population, which children will be inclusive because they're under the control or custody of some persons, and there are likelihood of such persons being abused. So the law offers protection orders. So if, for instance, there is that apprehension on the part of a wife or even a child or either a ward that is under your control or custody, such a person can approach the court, and the court will issue protection orders, to protect such persons from being, either violently abused or from being, their right being trampled upon, or from them being harmed. So you shouldn't wait until the crime is committed. If there are indications or likelihood of abuse taking place, the law gives room for you to approach the court for protection, and the court will rightly make an order for protection in favor of the person whose right is about to be violated. And then there are support services provided under the law. The victims have access to counseling, and then other medical and legal assistance, for persons whose rights are violated under the law. There are medical assistance that are provided, or legal representation that can be provided. We have the Legal Aid Council that seeks to provide free and pro bono legal services for indigent Nigerians who may fall under the categories of this vulnerable population whose rights may be trampled upon. And then there are punishment for offenders. So the law provides for punishment of offenders, which, like I stated earlier, includes that of imprisonment or fine. So you can be sentenced for life or you'll be asked to pay a fine, and the fine ranges from 500,000 to other amounts that are provided under the law. So it's as serious as that.
So it's no longer business as usual.
It is not business as usual, and I must really commend, the organization behind this program, for them to think of the need, because we need to create that awareness. Because ignorance of the law is not an excuse.
No, it's not.
And for the victims who may be suffering in silence without knowing that the law protects them, or there are provisions of the law that seeks to promote their interest or protect their interest, listening to us today, they will appreciate the fact that, yes, there are copious provisions under the law that seeks to promote their own interest and then safeguard their sanctity as human beings.
You're listening to Launch Drive, a special edition brought to you by the Concerned Women International Development Initiative, CWIDI, with support from the French Embassy Fund. In the studio discussing the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act is Barrister Ahmad Timing, and we have gone quite deep into the subject matter. But the phone lines are now open so that you can be part of the conversation. Why? Because your voice matters and knowledge is power. 09126999404. Let me call it slow for those of us who are very fast. 0912, yes, 6999404. Call us and tell us your name, where you're calling from. You can also send us a text message and WhatsApp to the same number. And of course, while we're still here, we're engaging with Barrister Ahmad Timing. Now, as we wait for our listeners to engage us, how is the VAT Act different from older laws that existed before it?
Now, just like I stated earlier, if you look at the Penal Code Law of Benue State, it provides for rape, but if you look at the punishment thereof, it's not something so deterring for the perpetrators of this inhumane action or crimes against their fellow human beings. So the VAT.
Hello. Okay, we lost that call. Please carry on.
All right. So the law takes a comprehensive approach towards addressing issues of violence against persons. And this includes various forms of violence and abuse, just like we highlighted earlier. So you have more of a comprehensive, list of some of these violent acts against persons. So they are specifically provided for under the law. And then it provides us with specific definition, of some of the various forms of violence, making it easier for us to identify and then prosecute offenders.
Hello? Hello? Unfortunately, you were on, but we could not hear you. Please call back. The number is 0912699404. Barrister, you were saying? We're still listening to you, sir.
Yeah. Now, another aspect of what makes it different from older laws is that of increased penalty. The Act provides for increased penalty for offenders, serving as deterrents to potential perpetrators of this violent act against persons. So, whereas under the Penal Code law, when you commit rape, you may go to prison for a period of 14 years. But under this law, it's life imprisonment, depending on the circumstances under consideration. So it gives us more of an approach that seeks to deter potential perpetrators of this crime so that it will deter other persons who may be tempted to follow that route.
Okay, so this is an improvement or more or less a law that seeks to address all the loopholes and identify new challenges and deal with them comprehensively.
Exactly.
But has this law been domesticated in Benue?
Yes, we have the violent, in Benue State, we have the law domesticated in 2019. It is known as the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Law of Benue State 2019. So the provisions are just a replica of what we have in the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act of 2015. So it has been domesticated in Benue State. It's applicable in Benue State and binding on all persons residing in Benue State.
But it has been pretty quiet.
That's why this program is very apt for the average Benue person who is listening to us to know that, yes, we have a law in existence and your failure to know whether there is a law of this kind in Benue is not an excuse. So ignorance of the law is not an excuse. So today, be rest assured, and we are telling you that we have the law since 2019, and it is in effect. So you can be arraigned in court for violating this law. If, as a victim, you have a right to approach the court for protection.
Good afternoon, sir. What is your name and where are you calling us from? Engineer, but how is North Bank today? Okay, so what's your question or contribution? Yes. All right, thank you, Engineer Sunday. Barrister Amatimi will respond shortly. Barrister, his question is direct, and having laws is not the issue. We have always had laws. He's bemoaning the fact that how do we make these laws more effective?
Now, I agree with him that the aspect of implementation is very, very key to giving efficacy to this law. We have it, and in fact, I believe that even the law enforcement agents need to be even educated about this law itself, because you still have instances where people are arraigned under the penal code law when they have committed rape, whereas you have a lesser sanction or punishment under the penal code law, but under the VAT law, you have more of a very stringent sanction or punishment.
Good afternoon, sir. Fine, sir.
I agree to you, sir.
We're listening. But we don't know your name, sir. Philip who, sir? Okay, from where, sir? Okay, how is Goma today feeling? Okay, now tell us what's your question, sir? Mhm. Just before you go forward, does this have to do with this program? Is it something that has to do with Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act? Okay, we're listening. All right, thank you so much, Philip. Well, I think the question is who are the law enforcement agents? Well, if I may rephrase, how does the public come in to assist when they notice injustice that has to do with violence against persons? Because sometimes, the victims and the perpetrators sometimes kind of like Stockholm syndrome. The victim doesn't want to speak out?
Yes.
How does it, because this is now a witness
Yes.
complaining
Yes.
about an incident. So how can the public also help to make the law more effective, as you were explaining before that call?
Yes. Now, the knowledge that we have a law of this kind is a step towards that direction.
Okay.
And then once you become knowledgeable, there are steps you take in situations where your rights under the law are being violated. So maybe I take the first question that the first caller asked about implementation.
Yeah.
Now when you talk about rape, medically there are steps that needs to be taken when someone is raped.
Yes. Oh, sorry, we were about to take another call.
All right.
We are very much interested in the myriad and litany of calls coming in because we want to get the people carried along. Yes. Carry on, sir.
All right. So when you look at rape, when someone is raped, then there is need for medical examination within a stipulated period of time. Let's say 24 hours. And the victim must not bath until that test is carried out, so that you preserve.
Is that what people call prima facie evidence?
Yes, so that you preserve that evidence. So a situation where someone is raped and then the person keeps it to himself and then wait till after like days or even months and then begin to raise the allegation, you'll be able to get the needed evidence to establish that. So victims or Nigerians must appreciate the fact that once your person is violated, you immediately act. Now, like the detention of the person, they unfortunately, the role of the military in our Nigeria today has been abused or bastardized. So that issue of internal security, we deploy our military and then they overstep their boundary. The role of the military is to protect the territorial integrity of Nigeria.
From external
aggression, exactly. So the involvement of the military in issues of civil or internal security, to my mind, it's an unconstitutional act. So they do not have the right to detain a citizen, not to talk of that prolonged period of time. So when you make an arrest, because as a private person, you have the right under the law to arrest. But the moment you arrest, you hand over to the police or law enforcement agent who are saddled with the responsibility of investigating and then arraigning such persons when they are culpable. So situations where people are detained for a very prolonged period of time is a violation of their right. And if that act of arrest in itself is violent, and then there are issues of emotional torture involved, then the person have a right under this law because compensation.
What can be done to
the person can file an action in court and then compensation will be paid to that person.
A member of the public who witnessed such an act of violation of a citizen
can do that. In fact, the enforcement of fundamental right under the Constitution, as a relation, you can file an action on behalf of your person that is being unlawfully detained or arrested. So
if something happens now, because this question led me down an alleyway that I hope to maybe arrive at towards the tail end of the program. But before we forget, what if I, for instance, hypothetically speaking, I am a neighbor and I know that something, maybe a sexual assault case has occurred, and I become interested and I take it up. Do I have any legal standing to?
In fact, the fact that you witness it, you're an informant and you have a very good standing to testify. In fact, when crime is committed, it's an offense against the state, beyond the individual who is even affected. So you're under a duty. In fact, you can even be summoned in court to come and testify when you even refuse to come. The court can compel you to come and testify to a crime you witnessed and you saw yourself. So you have more than ample local standard to follow up that matter.
I'm asking this question because people will say, what is your business?
It is your business.
They will even say it's a family matter.
It is your business because the truth is that man that is on loose needs to be controlled, needs to be, checkmated to avoid further persons or more persons falling victim to his criminal act. So situations where, in fact, I have witnessed situations where an infant or a minor is raped, and then family members are more keen on collecting stipends or peanuts as a way of settling the matter. So you see, it is not just the perpetrator of the act, but the family relations are more interested in the monetary benefit of whatever settlement that can be reached in that process, notwithstanding the violation, that lifetime impact,
and the trauma.
the trauma the victim lives with.
You're listening to us. It's Lunch Drive, a special edition brought to you by Concerned Women International Development Initiative and funded by the French Embassy Fund, supported by the French Embassy Fund. It's almost 1:30 today, Tuesday, 26 August. You can call in to be part of this program today. We are talking about the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act 2015 as domesticated in Benue State in 2019 with Barrister Mark Jimin. Call us on 091-26-999-404 or 081-4335-9292. And we'll take your calls, respond to your questions. We're also streaming live on Facebook at iGate Radio TV 1. And when you get there, you comment. We'll read your comments on the show as well. Barrister, what are some of the benefits this law brings to women, girls, and vulnerable groups?
Now, it brings to our doorsteps increased protection for women, girls, and vulnerable groups. And this may even include boys who may be molested or abused, at home or in schools, as the case may be. So the law itself provides increased protection for women, girls, and vulnerable groups in Benue State. And then it equally, enhances equal access to justice. So the law ensures that victims have access to justice, and then there are support services available to them. So you have a very important agency of the government, NAPTIP, that helps greatly in pursuing issues that has to do with violence against persons. Then it reduces violence in our society. So the fact that we have a law in place that aims to reduce violence and abuse in Benue State, it, to a very large extent, enhances the promotion of safer and more secured environment generally for us to coexist as human beings and then relate with one another.
The number to call once again is 081-4335-9292. And someone is telling me in the studio here that I am calling the numbers too slowly, so let me call it fast. 081 4335 9292. Is that fast enough? And the other one is 091 26 999 404. And you can interact with us. For those who may be calling and not getting through, text messages as well as commenting on our Facebook live stream will do you a world of good. Hello. Good afternoon, sir. Afternoon. Yes, what's your name and where are you calling from? Hello. We lost that one as well. Hello. Good morning, Ken. Good afternoon, sir. Please turn down the volume of your radio set, sir. Chief John, where are you calling us from? What part of Boko? Boko is a very big town. Okay, what part of Boko are you calling from? Adika, Ageda, Boko South, Boko East, Boko Central, GRA. Okay, carry on. Hello, 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 hello. We're not here to talk about the military or the paramilitary. We're talking about Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. So, what do you have to say about that, sir? Okay, okay, okay. All right, all right. Thank you. All right, thank you so much. So, what are some of the myths or misconceptions people have about this law?
Now, when we
Because
talk,
I know some people say this law is the handiwork of feminists. and all whatnot. Like you were saying at some point that it's not primarily even about women.
Yes.
Mm.
In
But
fact,
before you
okay.
respond, hello, we lost that call.
All right. So one of the misconceptions about the VAT law is that of limited applicability or scope. Where some persons believe that the law applies only to specific groups of situations, but that is not true because it applies to all forms of violence against persons, and persons here include both male and female. So both genders are protected under the law.
Hello. Good afternoon, sir. Uh, what is your real name, sir? That's a nickname. That looks is your name, unique name. Okay, Vincent, how are you? Okay, fine. So what's your contribution on the program, sir? Or question? Okay. All right, thank you so much, Vincent. Vincent Kwaza from Vincent Bayon in Gogo says the steps to take, how to go about seeking for redress and fighting for one's right is what discourages many people, and they're just like, just leave it.
Yeah, most persons are even worried of the cost of litigation. Do I have the capacity to engage a lawyer? Now we have the Legal Aid Council, that provides such free legal representation of services to members of the public in situations like this. And then you have NAPTIP there, playing a very important role in situations of violence against persons. And when we talk about violence, even political violence is part of it. So when you talk about thuggery or the use of force to disrupt elections and all that,
which speaks to the misconceptions that people think it's
yes,
only certain things.
exactly. So it's a wide, scope law that addresses many issues. And one thing is that the ability to speak up when your rights are violated is very important.
Hello. Afternoon, sir. Hello, are you with me? Afternoon, sir. Okay, sorry. Sorry. Carry on, Maurice.
All right. So when your rights are violated, you first know that yes, you have a right, and then that right is violated, and then the next thing is to report. And once you lodge a report, investigation will be carried out. And people must be very mindful of the fact that, okay, you see policemen mounting a checkpoint, and then there are perpetrating acts that are, against this very law. You should be very vigilant as well. For instance, can I